Backyard fence notice posted on the wood stopped me cold. Yellow paper pinned straight morning quiet, broken by a phone buzz from my garage radio as I stared at the fence line. I watched as Melissa Grant from the HOA served a compliance label at my fence, spoke policy, not reasons. Neighbors pausing sunlight on mailboxes. My name read, without explanation, by the clubhouse path. In my hand sat a county zoning review request, printed form reference box, empty technical paper that existed before any decision. Finally, someone fought back. The dispute centered on a compliance notice posted at the property, which the HOA claimed it could issue without outside review. What limited that control was an existing county zoning review process that applied regardless of HOA policy. The morning feels ordinary enough that I don't rush. Coffee cools on the kitchen counter. A radio murmurs from the garage, while I line up sockets on the tool bench, thinking about nothing more serious than whether the lawn needs trimming this weekend. I step into the backyard to check the fence line. That's when I see it. A rectangle of yellow paper is pinned straight into the wood dead center, like it's been measured. It doesn't flap. It just sits there, loud against the grain, impossible to miss. I walk closer. The words hit before I can stop them from landing. Non-compliant lot. For a second, I honestly think it's a prank. Some kind of misplaced flyer. A warning meant for someone else. I look left, then right, half expecting to see a neighbor laughing behind a hedge. Nothing. The yard is quiet. A dog barks somewhere down the block. Wind moves through the trees, but the paper doesn't budge. I read it again. Non-compliant lot. What I say out loud. There's no explanation underneath. No paragraph. No highlighted section. Just a stamped block near the bottom that reads filed, followed by a date from 3 days ago. Filed where, for what I turn the page over. Blank. No instructions. No contact name. No description of what's supposedly wrong with my property or how I'm meant to fix it. My chest tightens in a way I don't like. I've lived here long enough to know how these things usually go. If there's a real issue, there's a letter, a citation, something you can argue with. This feels different. Like a label, not a notice. I pull my phone out and snap a picture. The click sounds too loud in the quiet yard. Back in the garage, I prop the phone against the tool bench and zoom in on the photo. The paper looks even more official up close. Clean font. HOA logo in the corner. No mistakes. No ambiguity about who put it there. Non-compliant, I repeat, testing the word. Non-compliant with what I scroll through my email, half expecting to see something I missed. A warning. A reminder. Anything. Nothing. I type a short message. I found a notice posted on my property this morning. It states, non-compliant lot. Please advise what issue this refers to and what corrective action is required. I reread it. Polite. Neutral. The kind of email you send when you assume there's been a misunderstanding. I hit send. The phone vibrates almost immediately. An automated reply slides onto the screen. Your message has been received. That's it. No name. No signature. I stare at it for a moment, then walk back outside and look at the fence again. The notice hasn't moved. It still looks like it belongs there, like it's always been part of the yard. Mrs. Keller from 2 houses down waves as she heads to her car. I wave back, forcing a smile. Morning, she calls. Morning, I answer. She doesn't look at the fence. Or if she does, she doesn't react. I wait until she's gone before pulling the notice off the wood. The pin comes out with a small pop. For a split second, I hesitate, wondering if I'm allowed to remove it at all. I fold it once and slide it into my pocket. Back inside, my phone vibrates again. Another email. Your property has been flagged as non-compliant. That's the entire message. No greeting, no explanation, just the confirmation. Flagged. The word settles heavy in my stomach. Not warned. Not reviewed. Flagged. Like a switch has already been flipped somewhere without me in the room. I sit down at the kitchen table and spread the paper flat in front of me. The yellow looks harsher under indoor light. Flagged means something has already been decided. I realize sitting there alone with the notice and my untouched coffee that whatever this is, it didn't start this morning. It just showed up today. The line at the post office moves slowly the way it always does. I'm holding a small stack of envelopes, half listening to the squeak of the door every time someone leaves, half thinking about the yellow notice folded in my jacket pocket. My phone rings. Unknown number. I step out of line and answer it just as the clerk calls the next customer. Daniel Brooks, I say. There's a brief pause on the other end, controlled, deliberate. Then a woman's voice comes through, calm but clipped. This is Melissa Grant. I'm calling from the Pine Ridge HOA. So that's who, okay, I say. I was hoping someone would call. I understand you have questions about the compliance notice on your property, she says, as if she's reading from a script. I do, I reply, because it doesn't explain anything. Another small pause. This isn't personal, she says. It's policy. The phrase lands flat and practiced like it's been used many times before. Policy about what I ask. What exactly is my lot non-compliant with? She exhales softly, not impatient but not warm either. The association identified an issue during a routine review. A routine review by who I ask. And when our compliance team, she says. The notice was filed according to procedure. That doesn't answer the question, I say. What's wrong with my property? Behind me, someone clears their throat, waiting to get back into line. I step farther toward the door, away from the counter, and the quiet echo of the room. There are standards homeowners agree to, Melissa says. Your lot has been flagged. Flagged for what I press. For non-compliance. I almost laugh. You're just repeating the same words. This isn't up for debate, Mr. Brooks, she says. The flag indicates a compliance issue. I lower my voice. Then tell me the issue. Another pause. Longer this time. We don't need to get into specifics on this call, she says. The notice is sufficient. Sufficient for what I ask. To label my property without explanation, the association has authority to act, she replies. I feel my jaw tighten. Authority doesn't mean you don't have to explain yourselves. She doesn't respond right away. I hear faint typing on her end keys clicking in the background. Look, I say, trying to keep my voice even, has the county reviewed anything related to my property? The typing stops. There's silence. Not dropped call silence. Deliberate silence. Has the county reviewed it? I repeat. The post office door opens behind me. Cold air brushes my neck. County review is not required for the association to flag a lot, she says finally. So no, I say. They haven't reviewed it. She doesn't correct me. That's not the sequence, she adds. The county may review it later. Later, I repeat. After you flag it. Correct, she says. That's how the process works. Something sharp and hot rises in my chest. So you mark my property as non-compliant first, and then maybe someone outside the HOA looks at it later. That's policy, she says again. This isn't personal. I close my eyes for a second, steadying myself. People pass behind me with padded envelopes and small boxes going about their day like nothing unusual is happening. When will I get something in writing that explains the violation, I ask. You've already received notice, she replies. A label isn't an explanation. You'll be contacted if further action is required, she says. If I ask. When she corrects, then quickly adds if the issue isn't resolved. Which I can't resolve, I say, because you won't tell me what it is. Her tone hardens just slightly. Mr. Brooks, the association followed procedure. That's not what I asked. I've answered your questions, she says. No, I reply. You've avoided them. The line goes quiet again, just long enough to feel intentional. I suggest you review the bylaws, she says at last. That may clarify things. And if I disagree, I ask. The county may review it later, she repeats. The phrase sounds different now, less like reassurance, more like a dismissal. Is there a timeline, I ask. That's all I can say at this point, she replies. The call ends before I can respond. I stand there for a moment, phone still pressed to my ear, listening to nothing. Then I pull it away and stare at the dark screen. Flag first. Review later. Back at home, I spread the notice on the kitchen table again, this time with my laptop open beside it. The words haven't changed. Still no explanation. Still just a stamp and a date. But now there's something else underneath the anger. If the county hasn't reviewed anything yet, then this flag isn't final. It's just a move, a first step, and first steps can be challenged. I sit down, open a new tab, and start looking up county zoning contacts, feeling the edge of my frustration shift just slightly into focus. The diner smells like coffee and grease, the kind that seeps into your jacket and stays there. I slide into a booth by the window, set my phone on the table, and stare at the folded notice beside my plate, like it might say something new if I look at it long enough. It doesn't. I tap the number I found online and wait. A bell over the diner door jingles as someone walks in. A waitress pours coffee at the counter. The phone rings once, then twice. County zoning office, a woman answers. Her voice sounds tired but not unfriendly. Hi, I say. I'm calling about a compliance issue flagged on my property. There's a pause. I hear papers shifting. Address, she asks. I give it to her. She types for a moment. I don't see anything here, she says. You don't see a violation, I ask. I don't see a review, she replies carefully. What's the issue? My HOA flagged my lot as non-compliant, I say. They said the county may review it later. Another pause, longer this time. We haven't reviewed anything yet, she says. I sit back against the booth. So nothing's been submitted, not that I can find, she says. No inspection request, no file, nothing pending. But they flagged it, I say. They posted a notice and said enforcement could follow. She exhales quietly. The association can post notices, she says. That doesn't mean we've reviewed it. Can they enforce it without a review, I ask. There's a brief hesitation, like she's choosing her words. They don't have county authority, she says. Any enforcement tied to zoning would require our involvement. I glance out the window. Across the street, a weathered bulletin board holds faded flyers and a missing dog poster curling at the edges. So if you haven't reviewed it, I say, then the flag isn't based on a county finding. That's correct, she says. And if they act on it anyway, that would be between you and the association, she says. But from our side, nothing's been evaluated. I drum my fingers lightly on the table. Is there a way for me to trigger a review? Yes, she says, sounding more certain now. You can formally request a county review. How, I ask. I can email you the form, she says. Once it's submitted, we'll look at it. Would that stop them from enforcing anything I ask? I can't speak to what the HOA will do, she says. But once a review is initiated, there's a process. A process that hasn't happened yet, I say. Correct, she replies. The waitress sets a plate of eggs and toast in front of me. I nod my thanks, barely noticing it. So just to be clear, I say you haven't reviewed my property. No, she says, you haven't approved any violation. Number. And there's no active case on your end. That's right. I let the silence sit for a second. Then they flagged it without your input. That appears to be the case, she says. Okay, I say slowly. Please send me the review request. Of course, she replies. What's your email? I give it to her. I hear keys tapping. You should receive it shortly, she says. Once it's submitted, we'll take it from there. Thank you, I say. I appreciate your help. No problem, she replies. Is there anything else? No, I say. That answers a lot. We hang up. I stare at the phone for a moment, then look down at my plate. The eggs have gone cold. I push them aside and sip the coffee instead, letting the warmth settle. They flagged it first. Review later. I pay at the counter and step back outside. The afternoon sun feels sharper now. On my way home, I slow near the bulletin board and stop the car. I get out and stand there for a moment, scanning the notices. Garage sales, piano lessons, a flyer about a community meeting next month. Nothing about compliance, nothing about enforcement. At home, my phone buzzes as soon as I set my keys down. An email from the county. Attached request for zoning review. I open it, skim the form, and set the phone on the table. Another vibration follows almost immediately. This one is from the HOA. Enforcement will proceed. That's all it says. No greeting. No explanation. Just the sentence, bold and final like a door closing. I look from the screen to the yellow notice still lying on my kitchen table. Outside the fence stands exactly the way it did yesterday. Nothing has changed. Except now I know something they didn't tell me. The county hasn't reviewed anything. And whatever they plan to do next, they're doing it alone. Midnight comes quietly. The house settles into the kind of silence that makes every small sound feel deliberate. The refrigerator hums. The clock over the stove clicks once a second. The yellow notice lies folded on the kitchen table, smoothed flat now, as if that might make it less sharp. I open my laptop and pull the chair closer. The county form fills the screen, plain and bureaucratic. Address, parcel number, description of concern. Each field feels heavier than it should, like every keystroke carries a consequence I can't fully see yet. I type carefully. My name. My address. The same lot that's been mine for years suddenly reduced to a line item. I attach the photo of the notice zoomed in so the stamp and date are unmistakable. I pause, fingers hovering over the keys. If I do this, I'm no longer waiting. I'm stepping into it. I scroll down. At the bottom of the page, in smaller text, a sentence sits apart from everything else. Submission does not guarantee a pause. I read it twice. No promises. No protection. Just a door that may or may not open. Of course, I murmur. I lean back in the chair and rub my eyes. The anger from earlier has cooled into something heavier. Not fear, exactly. More like the awareness that whatever happens next won't be quick or clean, but leaving it in the HOA's hands isn't an option anymore. I lean forward again and finish the last field. When I click submit, there's no dramatic sound, just a small loading circle that spins for a second longer than I'd like. Then the screen refreshes. Submission received. I stare at the words, waiting for something else. Instructions. A timeline. Anything. Nothing appears. My phone buzzes on the table. I pick it up expecting another automated message from the county. Instead, I see Melissa's name. An email. I don't open it right away. I set the phone back down and look at the laptop screen again, at the quiet confirmation that something has shifted, even if I can't feel it yet. The phone buzzes a second time. I open the email. Daniel. We are aware that you have contacted the county regarding your compliance issue. This approach is unnecessary and may complicate the process. You're making this worse. That's it. No signature this time. No reference number. Just the sentence blunt and unmistakable. I exhale slowly. Worse for who I type a response than delete it. Type another. Delete that too. Anything I say right now would only give her something else to file. I close the email without replying. The kitchen feels smaller than it did an hour ago. The overhead light casts a yellow circle over the table, leaving the rest of the room in shadow. Outside the window, the yard is dark, the fence barely visible. I check my inbox again. A new message appears at the top. County Zoning Office. My heart lifts despite myself. I open it. Your review request has been received. Reference number attached. We will contact you if additional information is required. That's all it says. No timeline, no reassurance, just confirmation. Received. I sit back in the chair and let the laptop close with a soft click. The sound feels final in a way the earlier ones didn't. For the first time since the notice appeared, the decision isn't entirely theirs anymore. I know it doesn't mean they'll stop. The line at the bottom of the form made that clear. Submission doesn't guarantee a pause. They can still push, still pressure, still act like nothing has changed. But something has. The review exists now. There's a record, a timestamp, a reference number that didn't come from the HOA. I glance at my phone again. Melissa's email still sits there unread now that I've closed it once. The words replay in my head anyway. You're making this worse. Maybe. Or maybe I'm just making it visible. I fold the notice once more and slide it into a folder with my utility bills and property documents. It feels strange to put it there like it belongs, like it's always been part of the paperwork of owning a home. The clock clicks past 12:30. I turn off the kitchen light and stand in the dark for a moment, listening to the house breathe. Upstairs, the floor creaks as it cools. Outside, a car passes tires whispering over pavement. Tomorrow, the HOA will still be there. The notice will still exist. The flag won't come down on its own. But now there's another file somewhere else, one they don't control. I pick up my phone one last time and reread the county's message just to be sure it's real. Review request received. I set the phone face down and head for bed, knowing that whatever happens next won't be quiet, but also knowing that the next move isn't entirely out of my hands anymore. I know something's wrong the moment I turn onto my street. There are people standing near my fence. Not gathered exactly, but close enough that it feels intentional. Mrs. Keller from down the block. A couple I recognize but don't know by name. Someone I've only ever waved to while pulling trash cans back from the curb. They're all facing the same direction. My gate. I park and step out of the car. Before I even reach the sidewalk, I see it. Another notice. This one is bigger. Same yellow paper, same font, same spot on the fence pinned through the wood like the last one never came down. But this time there's more text, heavier, and louder printed in bold across the middle. Corrective action required. My stomach tightens. I walk closer, and the conversations around me quiet. I can feel eyes following me, measuring my reaction. I read the notice once, then again. There's still no explanation of what's wrong, no description of a violation. Just a new line added near the bottom, stamped and dated. Enforcement pending. You've got to be kidding me, I say, not meaning to speak out loud. A voice answers anyway. That's what I said. I turn. It's Mr. Alvarez from across the street. He shakes his head, hands shoved into his jacket pockets. They didn't even wait, he adds. They put it up this morning. Did they say anything, I ask? Just that it was official, he says. Whatever that means. A car pulls up behind me. Another one stops at the corner. By the time I reach the fence, there are at least 8 people standing nearby, pretending not to stare while very clearly staring. I hear heels on concrete. Melissa approaches from the sidewalk, clipboard tucked under her arm, 2 HOA staff members trailing behind her. They move with purpose, like they've rehearsed this walk. Daniel, she says, stopping a few feet away. Her tone is calm, controlled. Public. Melissa, I reply. Care to explain why there's another notice on my property? She glances at the fence, then back at me. The issue hasn't been resolved. The county has my review request, I say. You know that. Yes, she replies. And this notice reflects the association's position. So you're enforcing something that's under review, I say. A couple of neighbors exchange looks. The association has the authority to act, she says, voice even. Until the county tells us to stop, this stands. There it is. I let the words hang in the air. You're saying that out loud, I ask. She lifts her chin slightly. Yes. I gesture to the notice. So you're flagging my property again while the county is reviewing it. This is not a second flag, she says. It's a continuation of what I ask. An explanation you still haven't given me. One of the HOA staff clears his throat, shifting uncomfortably. Melissa doesn't look at him. Daniel, she says, lowering her voice just enough to sound reasonable. You're escalating this unnecessarily. I look around. You posted a notice in front of half the neighborhood. She doesn't respond to that. Is there a violation code, I ask? A bylaw reference, anything? The notice is sufficient, she says. That's what you said last time, I reply. And then you admitted the county hadn't reviewed anything. A murmur ripples through the small crowd. Mrs. Keller folds her arms. They haven't, she asks. Melissa's eyes flick briefly toward her, then back to me. This isn't a public forum. You made it one, I say. I feel the weight of the moment settle in. The quiet is thicker now. This isn't just between me and the HOA anymore. It's happening in front of people who live here, who know what that fence looked like yesterday. Are you planning to fine him? Someone asks from behind me. Melissa hesitates just long enough to be noticeable. Enforcement actions will proceed according to policy, she says. So yes, I say. She doesn't correct me. I reach into my pocket and pull out my phone. The screen lights up in my hand, bright against the afternoon sun. You know the county received my request, I say. You emailed me about it. That doesn't change the association's process, she replies. And what happens if the county disagrees with you, I ask. That hasn't happened, she says. But it could, I say. Because they're actually reviewing it. She tightens her grip on the clipboard. Until the county tells us to stop, this stands. I hear a low scoff from somewhere behind me. For what it's worth, Mr. Alvarez says this doesn't feel right. Melissa ignores him. The phone in my hand vibrates, a sharp, unmistakable sound. Beep. Everyone sees it. I look down at the screen. A new email notification sits at the top, sender name flashing bright. County Zoning Office. My pulse jumps. Melissa notices too. Her eyes drop to the phone, then lift back to my face. I don't open it yet. Not immediately. I let the moment stretch, feeling something shift in the air. This is no longer just a notice on a fence. It's a standoff, plain and visible. I'm not trying to be difficult, I say, keeping my voice steady. I'm asking for the same thing any homeowner would ask for. A reason. A review. Something official. You've been given notice, she says. And now the county's responding, I say, tapping the phone lightly with my thumb. Her expression hardens. That doesn't change anything. I finally open the email. I don't read it out loud. Not yet. But I smile despite myself. Because whatever it says, it didn't come from her. Around us, the neighbors wait. No one leaves. No one speaks. They're watching not out of curiosity, but recognition. The kind that comes when someone finally pushes back instead of stepping aside. Finally, someone fought back. I look up at Melissa's phone still in my hand, the screen glowing between us. This isn't over, she says. I know, I reply. The email sits there unopened beyond the subject line, heavy with possibility. And for the first time since that first yellow notice appeared, I'm not the only one standing here. The subject line is impossible to miss. It fills the top of my screen in bold, dark letters, bright enough that the people closest to me can see it without trying. County Review Enforcement. Paused. A ripple moves through the small crowd before I say a word. Someone inhales sharply. Someone else mutters. What? Melissa's eyes lock onto my phone. Daniel, she says, voice tight now. Isn't the time? I think it is, I reply. I lift the phone a little higher, turning it so the screen faces outward. The sunlight reflects off the glass, but the words are still clear. Would you like me to read it? I ask. She opens her mouth, then closes it again. I tap the screen and scroll. This is from the county zoning office, I say. Received 10 minutes ago. I clear my throat and begin reading slowly, carefully. This notice confirms that a formal review has been initiated regarding the flagged property at the listed address. A hush settles over the group. No one interrupts. Effective immediately, all enforcement actions related to this matter are paused pending the outcome of the county review. I look up. Melissa hasn't moved. The association is directed to suspend any corrective or punitive measures until further notice. The silence that follows feels heavier than the words themselves. So I say, lowering the phone slightly, that's a pause. Someone lets out a quiet laugh. Another person exhales like they've been holding their breath for days. Melissa straightens her shoulders. This doesn't invalidate the association's position, she says. No, I reply, but it stops you from acting on it. She shakes her head once. The review hasn't concluded. I know, I say. That's the point. One of the HOA staff shifts his weight, glancing between us. He looks uncomfortable, like he didn't expect to be standing here when this happened. What does that mean for the notice? Mrs. Keller asks. I glance back at the fence. The yellow paper still sits there, bold and accusatory. It means I say they can't enforce it. Melissa takes a step forward. The notice reflects an internal process, she says. It doesn't. The county disagrees, I reply, lifting the phone again. They're the ones with the authority you keep talking about. She presses her lips together. So you're saying you can still fine him? Mr. Alvarez asks. Melissa hesitates. The association will comply with the county's direction, she says carefully. That's a no, someone mutters. Melissa hears it. Her jaw tightens. This pause is temporary, she says. Once the review is complete, then we'll see I finish. I scroll again, making sure I haven't missed anything. There's a reference number at the bottom. A timestamp. The kind of details that don't belong to an HOA letterhead. This came from outside your office, I say. You didn't write it. You didn't approve it. I let that settle. For weeks I continue. I asked for an explanation. I asked for a review. I was told it wasn't required. I gesture to the phone. Turns out it was. Melissa exhales through her nose. You escalated unnecessarily. I escalated appropriately, I reply. A man I don't recognize nods. About time someone did. Melissa looks around, realizing she no longer has the room the way she did before. The authority she carried when she walked up the sidewalk has thinned, stretched tight by something she can't control. This isn't over, she says. I meet her gaze. No, I say. But it's not just yours anymore. She glances at the notice on the fence. For a moment it looks like she might reach for it, pull it down herself. She doesn't. We'll be in touch, she says instead, turning toward the sidewalk. The HOA staff follow her without a word. No one moves right away. The fence is still there. The notice is still pinned in place. But the energy around it has changed. It doesn't feel like a warning anymore. It feels like evidence. Someone claps once. Just a single sound, sharp and quick. Another person joins in, then another. It doesn't turn into applause exactly. More like acknowledgement. Recognition. I lower the phone and slip it back into my pocket. Mrs. Keller smiles at me. I'm glad you said something, she says. So am I reply. People begin to drift away, conversations starting up in low voices. A few stop to look at the notice again, reading it now with new eyes. I stay by the fence, staring at the yellow paper one last time. Finally, someone fought back. I reach up and remove the pin, the same small pop as before. This time, no one questions it. I fold the notice and tuck it under my arm. Behind me, the street returns to its usual rhythm. Cars pass. A dog barks. Life moves forward. I turn toward the house, the phone heavy in my pocket, the words still fresh in my mind. Enforcement paused. Not erased. Not forgiven. But stopped. For now, that's enough. The letter arrives 2 days later. Not taped to a fence, not stamped in yellow. Just a plain white envelope in the mailbox, my name typed neatly on the front. When I open it, the difference is immediate. No capital letters. No bold warnings. Just a request. The Pine Ridge HOA Board requests your presence at a special meeting to discuss recent compliance actions. That's it. No deadlines. No threats. No language about enforcement. I read it twice, then set it down on the kitchen table and let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. The meeting room smells faintly of coffee and carpet cleaner. Folding chairs are set up in loose rows, and the board sits behind a long table at the front. I recognize most of them by sight, even if I don't know all their names. Melissa is there too, seated at the far end. She doesn't look at me when I walk in. I take a chair near the middle, close enough to hear, but not close enough to feel like I'm on display. A few neighbors file in behind me. Not a crowd this time. Just enough to fill the room with quiet attention. The board president clears his throat. Thank you for coming, he says. We'll keep this brief. That alone tells me how much has changed. He gestures to a man seated beside him, older, calm, wearing a suit phone that looks like it's seen a lot of meetings like this. Our council has reviewed the county's communication, the president continues. We've also received direct confirmation from the zoning office. The lawyer nods and speaks in a measured tone. The county has determined that the initial compliance flag was issued without completing the required review process. A murmur moves through the room. In plain terms, he adds the association acted out of sequence. I feel the tension in my shoulders ease just a little. The lawyer continues. The pause remains in effect. No enforcement actions may proceed unless and until the county review concludes. Melissa's hands are folded tightly in front of her. She stares at the table. So what happens now? Someone asks from the back. The board president answers. We comply. Fully. He glances down at a sheet of paper, then back up. As part of that compliance, the board has reviewed our internal procedures, he says. Effective immediately, we will be revising how compliance notices are issued. No one interrupts him. All future notices will require documented review before posting, he continues. Homeowners will receive written explanations with specific references. I hear a quiet exhale beside me. Relief, not triumph. The president pauses, then looks toward Melissa. At this time, he says carefully, Melissa Grant has stepped down from her role as compliance chair. The room goes still. Melissa lifts her head. Her voice is steady but quieter than I've ever heard it. I believe this is in the best interest of the association, she says, and the community. She doesn't look at me when she says it. There's no applause, no celebration, just a sense of something settling into place. The lawyer gathers his papers. The county will notify all parties when the review is complete, he says. Until then, the pause remains. And the notice on Mr. Brooks's property, a board member asks. It should not have been posted, the lawyer replies. It should not be reposted. The president nods. Understood. The meeting wraps up quickly after that. No arguments, no raised voices, just procedural language and a few careful questions. As people stand and begin to leave, a couple of neighbors stop to talk quietly near the door. Someone thanks the board for addressing it. Someone else mentions how the process could have gone differently. I stay seated for a moment, letting the room empty. When I finally stand, Melissa is already gone. Outside, the air feels lighter. Not because everything is resolved, but because the ground rules are clear now. The pause is holding. The board has acknowledged the mistake, and the authority that pushed this forward has stepped aside. As I walk to my car, my phone buzzes with a short message from the county. Review ongoing. No action required at this time. I slip the phone into my pocket and take one last look at the building. This meeting wasn't the fight. It was the echo. And echoes, I've learned, mean something was heard. I notice it before I step all the way into the yard. The fence looks empty. For a moment, my brain tries to fill in what's missing the way it does when something militar changes overnight. Then it clicks. The yellow sign is gone. No pin, no paper, no rectangle shouting from the wood. Just the fence the way it's always been weathered and ordinary and mine. I stand there longer than I need to, letting the quiet settle. No email notification. No follow-up message. No replacement notice waiting to take its place. Nothing. Inside, my phone stays silent. For the first time in weeks, there's no subject line hovering over my morning coffee, no alert hinting that something else is about to drop. The county's last message sits archived in my inbox, now the language plain and final. Oversight ongoing. Enforcement paused. Association directed to comply. Not dramatic, not congratulatory, just done. By Saturday afternoon, the yard smells like charcoal and cut grass. I've got the grill going and a folding table set up with paper plates and a cooler full of drinks. It isn't a party exactly. More like a default gathering, the kind that happens when people realize it's safe to linger again. Mr. Alvarez brings over a bowl of chips. Mrs. Keller shows up with potato salad and a smile that reaches her eyes. A couple from down the street I've never really talked to before wander over, hands in pockets, curious but relaxed. No one mentions the notice right away. We talk about the weather, about the pothole near the corner, about a kid on the next block who just learned how to ride a bike without training wheels. Normal things. At some point, someone glances at the fence. "So it's gone," Mr. Alvarez says. "Yeah," I reply. "Came down yesterday." "Good," he says. "Shouldn't have been there in the first place." Mrs. Keller nods. "Feels different without it." "Quieter," someone adds. I flip burgers and listen to the hum of conversation behind me. Laughter drifts up easy and unforced, the kind that doesn't brace for interruption. Later, as the sun starts to drop and the shadows stretch across the yard, the talk shifts naturally. Not to blame or replay, but to what happens next. "They really have to follow the county now?" the woman from down the street asks. "They do," I say. "County's keeping oversight on anything related to it." "And the HOA?" she asks. "They've been directed to stick to the process," I reply. No more shortcuts. No one cheers. No one claps. That's not what this is. Mr. Alvarez takes a sip of his drink and looks around the yard, then back at me. "You know," he says, not loud, but clear enough for the people nearby to hear, "finally, someone fought back." There it is. Not triumph. Recognition. I nod once. I just didn't want them deciding things without anyone checking. "That matters," he says, "more than they think." As the grill cools and people start to drift home, I collect empty bottles and stack plates. The yard slowly returns to itself, the fence catching the last of the evening light. When everyone's gone, I step inside and open the folder I started weeks ago. Utility bills, insurance papers, deed copies. I slide the county's letter into it behind the others. Not framed, not highlighted, just filed. I close the folder and set it back in the cabinet. Outside the yard is quiet again. The fence stands the way it always has, doing its job without commentary. No labels, no warnings. I step onto the porch and take a breath, feeling the air cool against my skin. This wasn't about winning. It was about stopping something that shouldn't have been moving in the first place. The flag came down. The pause held. The authority that overreached found its boundary. That's enough. I turn off the porch light and head inside, leaving the yard the way it's supposed to be, unmarked, unflagged, and finally at rest. When the posted order came down and the folder closed, the yard felt quieter, like a wound finally sealed instead of hidden. The county's review didn't crown a winner. It set a boundary read into record and returned authority to where it belonged. That pause mattered because it was public, procedural, and fair proof that power slows when light is applied. Finally, someone fought back. What healed us wasn't noise or punishment, but a clear process that let neighbors stand together without fear. If you've ever been flagged without an explanation, remember this: transparency isn't loud. It's steady and it works.